Alright, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to Elephant in the Room, number 11. We're gonna restart this one more time for So today's a special day. I got an actual reporter from CBS, CW on my show. I feel very lucky. I know you're a very busy woman. So how's that working for both stations? Like, do you do broadcasts for both, or are they actually the same, or what's the deal with that?
Well, most stations, when you own two channels, it's called a duopoly, and so most stations do broadcast on both their channels. I only broadcast though on. No, I take that back. I do broadcast on the CW. One more time.
You're good. We gotta start over. Keep going.
Well, I do broadcast. I'm the weekend anchor and reporter.
Okay.
I'm new to the area. I've been there for a couple weeks now, and it's probably, it's an easy workload. It's an easy balance. I mean, yeah, you do your newscast twice. You deliver the same information twice, but it's okay because it's a different audience.
Yeah.
Like, I'm from down south, so we prefer a 10 o'clock newscast over an 11 o'clock newscast. It's a little late for us.
Yeah.
So on the CW, we broadcast from 10 to 10:30, for instance, on the weekends, and then I come back at 11 and I do it on the CBS. So.
All right, so I know you've been doing this for a while. Where are you from? Where'd you start out at? What's up with that?
So I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, which is where I got my start at Channel 7 there. And they are a legacy #1 station, so I grew up watching a lot of the people that I eventually got to work with, and
that's
so
awesome.
That was like really, really neat. And so there I started out doing social media. Social media has really taken off. It's kind of its own little media outlet.
Yeah, it's
not just like the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I mean, you have full blown shows on social media now, and so we saw that back then. I started working at Channel 7 in 2012, and so that was just like the progression of where media was headed. So it was cool to get my start there. And I started out doing a social media segment for Channel 7, and eventually that made it onto their morning show. And for the most part, I did like trending topics, entertainment news, and then eventually I moved on from Channel 7 and went to Louisiana.
Okay. All right. So what was it? What did you cover in Louisiana? The same type of thing, or did you go into a little more serious type of reporting?
Definitely more serious, more hard news, because there were some things that happened in news while I was at Channel 7 that really woke me up, and I felt that it was more so time for me to focus on what was really important to me and to really be able to use this platform and it benefits someone else.
Right.
And it can help other people. And so that's more so what I cared about.
Yeah, okay, I like that though. So, what happened, if you wouldn't mind telling me that?
Oh, okay. So, I'm an AME. I attended an African Methodist Episcopal church. And that's the church that I grew up in. It's Mount Nebo AME in College Station, Arkansas. Well, there was a shooting in Charleston. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I heard about it. I'm not super familiar with it.
Okay, well, that shooting in Charleston was an AME church. It's Mother Emanuel. It's the first AME church in the country. That's why it's called the Mother.
Okay.
Well, the way our church is structured, we're all connected. And so, like, there are different levels to the church. And so, the churches in Little Rock would be the local level, for instance. Then, there are like different conferences within Arkansas. Arkansas, Oklahoma make up our Episcopal district. And then when you put all the districts together, that's when you get the connectional level. So we are all connected.
Okay.
So for instance, when I went to Louisiana, they're the 8th district, and I attended an AME church. I was there. Now that I'm here, I'm in the 1st district, and so I go to an AME church here, Bethany AME.
Okay.
And so it brings that familiar sense of home to me. Yeah. But anywho, let me get back on track.
No, you're
well,
good,
when the shooting happened, I called one of my friends who was actually, he's from the 8th and he's in New York now, but he knew the pastor there.
Okay.
And so like that kind of demonstrates how connected we really are.
Yeah.
So it really hit home because in the AME church we are family, and it's like, it's kind of like being Greek. I guess that's like the example that you know how like people who are Greek, you know, they get together, you know, I might be an AKA or a Delta, and you know, I see somebody else, you know, wearing my letter, and it's like, oh, it's all right. You know, it's kind of that same thing, that same love and that same camaraderie. Like that's how it is. And so when that happened, that impacted me as an individual, and it impacted our church, you know, from the local level to the connectional level.
Yeah, I think it impacted the entire community, honestly.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. And so the reporter who actually did our coverage on a local level for that shooting, we localized that story. And so like there were visuals being held, there were programs being held. She wanted to know how it impacted us as members of the AME church. And so I kind of like put her in touch with our bishops and pastors, people who work within the AME church full time. And at that moment, I remember that day, I just said, you know, there's so much more to news and to the world beyond, you know, whatever entertainer has going on.
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
It was just crazy how, like, I saw naturally her story. She maybe did like 2 or 3 days of coverage, and she really took how we feel and made other people understand. And after seeing that, it was like, man, I want to do that. I got to do that. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so you started in 2012, you said. So you started right in the second term of the Obama era, correct? All right, so how does it feel going from someone who was in the Obama era? Reporters are trusted. People trust our local news outlets, even if it wasn't 100%, which I don't think you should ever trust anything 100%. You know what I mean?
Well, you can trust me 100%.
Well, at the end of the day, you're a reporter, so you don't get to pick the stories that get to go on the air, do you?
Well, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But
so do you have to run it by someone that can approve it or shut it down, or is it like you guys all just bring it to the table and they pick what's best for the day? Yeah,
we have a pitch meeting, and so we have 2 of those. And so we all come together in the mornings and we decide, okay, well, here are a list of ideas. What is newsworthy? What is impactful? What is actually doable for that day?
So do you guys decide that as a group, or is it like an editor or producer or something that has final say over it?
Well, I mean, everybody adds their input, and typically it kind of like goes to the majority, but our news director, I mean, he really has like the final say so at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So somebody has final say so though. But I got off topic anyway. So the point that I was asking was, how does it feel coming into the Trump era, where everything that you guys could possibly say about anything that he does negative or anything that any real politicians do negative right now is fake news? It's immediately, and a lot of the public that are Trump supporters take that to the hardest of hearts, you know what I mean? And they don't trust any types of news outlets for anything, even though that's a very slippery slope. You know what I mean? How does that feel for you as being the reporter and having them say all those things about basically you and everybody else in the country that's reporting on stuff?
Well, I'll say it's different for me because I'm a weekend anchor and a local news reporter, so I don't have to go to the White House and drill the press secretary about whatever it is that's going on.
But you still get the runoff though, because you're still on TV.
You do, because there are sometimes you just run into people who they see the station letters and they're like, no, I don't want to talk. I don't want to be affiliated with you, and that's disheartening. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I know my morals and I know my values, and I mean that just goes back to the basics about how my mom taught me, to always tell the truth and to always have a high level of integrity. And so I carry those with me every day, day in, day out. And so it does, it is kind of hurtful to see people, stray away because they've stereotyped you and they've lumped you into this one group because of whatever reason. And it's like, but that's not what I'm about. And really, our jobs are to advocate for regular people who wouldn't necessarily be able to advocate for themselves. And so, like, if you think about it, when something happens, and it's kind of like the same thing with police.
Right.
There are people who do not like the police, who don't fool with the police.
I have my prejudices.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if somebody walks through the door and starts shooting, you're gonna call the police, right?
I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna have time at that, honestly.
Well, I
look,
mean-
I'm not gonna lie. I'm one of the people. I'll keep it funky with you. Like, you can only trust anyone so much, cops especially, because at the end of the day, cops have way more power than is natural for any person to have. You know what I mean? They get to walk around with a gun openly on their waist, and they have a little star on their chest that says everything they do is right. So a lot of them people can't take that. And whether or not people actually want to admit that on either side is the truth. It's a lot of pressure for one person to have that much power in their life, especially when you know that you can get scared and shoot somebody and you'll be accepted. At the end of the day, if you make somebody else scared and they shoot you, now they're a cop killer. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous to me. Like, the same thing with, like, the cop dogs compared to my dog. You know what I mean? If the cop would come into my house and raid my house for whatever reason he felt, the cops felt was necessary, and my dog starts barking, they could shoot my dog down. It doesn't matter anything. It's just an animal, right? But I know this happened to somebody in Harrisburg. He got chased by the cops and they let a dog loose. He jumped over a fence and the dog tried to jump the fence and ended up putting his paw into the chain link fence and fell and snapped his own neck. The dude got charged.
It's actually a longer sentence if you shoot a police dog than if you shoot an officer.
And the dude got charged for murdering an officer. You know what I mean? Now that doesn't seem right to me. You know what I mean? That's the type of power that they get to deal with every single day. So you can't expect everybody that goes into that position to be trustworthy. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people that I know that grew up to be cops were kind of dickheads in high school. They weren't like the best of best people, and the reason they really went to being into being cops is because they enjoy power. They enjoy power over people, and then they can put their prejudices on their entire community. You know what I mean? Because everybody's prejudiced on something or another. You know what I mean? Not everyone's willing to admit that, but everyone has their own stereotypes and prejudices or anything like that. You know what I mean? But
I'd like to think that there's good in most people.
I do too. Nobody's all bad or all good.
And I don't think that every police officers are bad.
Right.
I don't think that every member of the media is a liar.
Mm-mm.
You have a podcast.
Right.
That makes you a part of the media.
I understand.
I
understand that, but I'm a lot more
delivering
grassroots
information.
too. That's why I'm so excited to talk to you, because I like talking to informed people, and being in the newsroom. You get to, even if a story doesn't get on the air, you get to hear about it at your little conferences and stuff like that. So you know a lot more about what's going on in the community than any given person, except for like a mayor or even the cops and stuff, because you get to listen to all of that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Cops only get their one little things and like that. Sometimes they'll share information, but for the most part, you're on your own trying to figure out your cases and stuff. You know what I mean? You get to hear all of that. So like, tell me some stories, man. You've been doing this for 7 years. I know you got some interesting stuff that's went down while you've been doing this.
I guess, what are you looking for?
Oh, whatever you think is interesting. I'm open to whatever. I know, because you've covered a lot of news, so to me, I don't watch as much news as people really should. So
I mean, I've covered some really happy stuff, some exciting stuff. I've covered some extremely sad situations. So
well, give me
it's such a broad
something
spectrum.
impactful. Like I don't want to go straight to anything negative, like shooting or nothing like that. But like, have you ever been in there when they found like some political what's the word I'm looking for right here? People doing stuff messed up. You know what I mean? Like mayors, governors, and such like that. You've been on here 7 years. So tell me some crazy stuff about some mayors that got kicked out of office or something like that. Because I'm super down to listen.
I mean, there are plenty of officials that I can think of. There are a couple of different situations off the top of my head when I was in Little Rock. You know, people stealing money from different organizations. There was a person who was convicted of stealing money from a nonprofit. It's
I feel like that's common. I feel like that's something that happens a lot.
I mean, there's a particular organization that helps with feeding children over the summer breaks. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when kids go to school, that's the only meal they get. They get free
lunches and stuff.
Yeah. The breakfast and the lunch, those are the meals that they typically get. And so there's a program that kind of helps fill that void, that gap. I remember one person was convicted for stealing money from one of their top officials, stealing money from their program.
Wow.
So, I mean, you kind of see it all, like...
All right, well,
You do. You see it all.
let me ask you another way. Since you've been in office, at least currently, I mean, not office. Since you've been in the newsroom and stuff, and up here and all that, what do you think's the greatest problem in this area? You know what I mean? Because you're an informed person, so I would wonder: is it the schools? You know what I mean? Is it just jail system in Harrisburg, which is way worse than it should be? That's a horrible prison.
Well, see, I've only been here for a couple of weeks, so I wouldn't be the best person to ask.
How long were you in Georgia?
Louisiana?
Yeah, Louisiana. How long were you in Louisiana?
For 3 years.
All right, so what's going on down there?
Well, they just had, what is the day? November. Okay, so they are getting ready to have their runoff election. I know right now the governor's race is really heating up down there. They just had their primaries in October. And I know a lot of people were paying attention to whether or not the incumbent was going to get reelected. But he is in a runoff with a businessman. He kind of reminds me of Trump. Just the background, because they're both successful businessmen who entered into politics, into these, pretty, president of the United States. It's the highest office.
It's crazy.
I've seen it.
He led that way for a lot of people to do that. There's a lot more people breaking into politics that were, they're just rich business guys, and now they're like, well, if I can do that, he can do that. I'm smarter than Trump. So
he wasn't trying to ease in, local government or state rep or Senate. He went straight for the governor's office. And so I know a lot of people are trying to see, is it going to become like a dumbed down, a watered down version of our last presidential race there. So I know that's big.
Are you Republican or Democrat or independent? How do you view yourself politically?
That is a good question, because it's such a change in the parties and what the parties stand for. And honestly, I don't like the fact that there are some basic issues that most people agree upon, but it's the funding and it's the backing of both parties that really dictate whether or not people say yay or nay for it.
Right.
Even though most people might feel like nay, or most people feel like yay, it's the lobbyists and the financiers that really kind of have a lot of influence.
So much. You have to have so much fun and even go to the debates. You can't even go unless you have a certain amount of funding.
Right, and so it's hard to say. I think I am an issue-based voter. I figure out what means most to me right now at this point in time, and what are these candidates saying about it. And
right.
You kind of just got to go from there.
So how do you feel about the candidates coming up against Trump this year? Andrew Yang, Ms. Warren, Bernie, all these other people. How are you feeling with the race going so far?
The Democratic presidential candidates are impressive.
Because the Republicans haven't put anyone else besides Trump that actually said they're going to. Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think anyone was going to actually fight him.
That wouldn't be smart for the party.
No,
but anyway.
No, it looks bad.
Yeah, but in my opinion, it wouldn't.
But there's a lot of Republicans that swear up and down they hate Trump and everything he stands for and everything like that. So you would assume if y'all feel that strongly about it, you would show the world. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. Continue.
But yeah, the Democratic presidential candidates, they're very impressive. A lot of them are very sharp, and they're you brought up Mr. Yang. He's very tech savvy, very forward thinking, very innovative,
very young minded.
Absolutely. And so each one brings a certain, Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been, in the White House. He's been the vice president. He has the experience. And so you see all the candidates bringing something different to the table. Yeah. And so I like it. I think no matter who comes out on top, I think that they'll be solid.
Should be good. Should be good. Now, me personally, I think, and obviously I'm not any crazy guy, I'm just me, but I think Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard would be the best for the country.
Why do you say that?
Because Andrew Yang, like you said, is real tech savvy. He knows everything going on in Silicon Valley. He understands that AI is coming to take people's jobs. You know what I mean? I just shared a video the other day of a robot cutting somebody's hair. Now, obviously, it wasn't the greatest right now, but in 4 years, that might be able to give you fades and lineups and all that types of crazy stuff. So it's just another area that could come to take jobs, you know what I mean? And Tulsi Gabbard is really into the military stuff. She understands what's going on in the Iraq, Iran, all that type of stuff. She's super against regime change wars, you know what I mean? Like us going and toppling somebody for oil or anything like that.
You think she's very informed when it comes to foreign policy?
I do. I think she's really, really good at that type of stuff, and she's more worried about our military than the average Democrat that's running right now. You know what I mean? Like, she actually is out there fighting for them. And for someone like me, like, I would never be in the military myself because I don't like anyone that's calling the shots for the military. You know what I mean?
It sounded like, you know, maybe you had a family tie in the military.
No, I just listen. I like to be informed about the people that are trying to run my country. You know what I mean? And especially just being young and stuff, I like listening to the younger folks like Tulsi Gabbard and Andrea Yang both went on the Joe Rogan Experience for like 2 or 3 hours pop. So you could really sit there and listen to everything they had to say and everything like that. And when I first heard Andrea Yang speak, I kind of like didn't know how to take it. You know what I mean? Because the first thing he's saying is, let's just give away a bunch of money. And the first question that goes to everyone's mind is, well, where's it going to come from and everything like that. And I'm not going to go through and spout all that shit off. If you want to know, just go look at his website. You know what I mean? But he's a very interesting man. He's not dumb, and he understands that technology is the next wave of evolution for man. You know what I mean? Like, things are about to get really crazy here in the US in the next 20 years from the way that we're building our robots and everything like that. It's getting crazier and crazier. And like I said, Tulsi, even if she's not the best for foreign policy, which from what I heard, I think she would do very well. You know what I mean? She's concerned about our military. She's not going to put people's lives at risk for no type of reason or continue to spend billions of dollars toppling other governments that we have nothing to do with. You know what I mean? That's a big problem in the White House, I think, and top the CIA, all that type of shit, is they stick their nose in everybody else in the world's business. And if they would stop doing that, I think a lot of other countries would have room to grow like we have. You know what I mean? It's the same type of situation where people say there's a reason black people aren't successful as white people in this country, because white people had much longer to grow into success. You know what I mean? They never had to go through slavery or segregation or getting looked at sideways to get a job or anything like that. Like 50, 60 years ago, black women like you being on the news would be boom, like mind-blowing shit, and now it's a regular thing. You know what I mean? So the country's changing, and someone like Joe Biden, he's just another old white guy at the end of the day. And I hate to say it like that, but those are the exact people that are holding the country back. Not because they're old and white, just because of their own personal stereotypes. And, you know what I mean, the way that they grew up is still ingrained in them. They can't help that, you know what I mean? One of the few people that I don't feel like that about is like Bernie Sanders, you know what I mean? He marched with Martin Luther King. He's done all this other stuff, and he understands that the people that the president should be fighting for is the lowest class people in the country, because everybody else can fight their own fight. They can afford their own lawyers. They can afford all this other stuff to make sure they don't get fucked over in life. And people like my mom and my grandma and other stuff, they can't afford any of that. They kind of have to take what they can get from the government. If something's gonna happen, they get fucked over. You know what I mean? Like Bernie's big on the insurance companies and stuff like that. I despise the insurance companies. The people that are getting raped for penicillin and EpiPens and all this other crazy shit, it's fucking crazy to me. You know what I mean? And he's one of the only people that's out there like, I think medication should be free, hospital care should be free, and if Canada can do it, we can fucking do it. I'll put it like that, because we number one in military strength and people in prison. Like, that's the only really things we're number one at here in the country, and that's upsetting to me. You know what I mean? When we could, France has free college. There's a million places that has free college and all that, and we're falling behind the curve of where we should be as Americans, because we used to lead the world in everything, and now it's just, like I said, military strength and people in jail, and it's kind of just disgusting to me. What do you think?
You stood on your soapbox for 5 minutes. Now, what do you think?
I don't know. Like I said, you asked my opinion, and it's one of those things I'm very opinionated about, because, like I said, these are people that want to run the country. And if we don't keep an eye on these people that want to run the country, that's how we get people like Trump in office, where all we hear is the stuff that he puts on TV and toots his own little horn, you know what I mean? We get a situation like Trump, where if we would have had interviews with the people that were working with him on the Apprentice and stuff like that. Like, you can go look at these interviews now with all these people, and they're like, well, he's fucking crazy. We had to run 4 hours of camera on him just to get 30 seconds of good tidbits and business and shit that makes him sound semi-intelligent. Other than that, he was just a front man, basically. Like, he was a way for them to make the business world look appealing before Shark Tank was a thing. You know what I mean? Like, they went hard popping that guy up, and then, like, nobody looked into, like, all the casinos in Atlantic City and all these other things that went horribly, horribly wrong. Like, there's still like 100 people at least that I can think of. I want to say a way higher number, but I'm just going to say 100 because that's bad enough. That are still, is way more than that. It's thousands of people that built them casinos and shit that didn't get paid from Trump. And like, I looked into all that when I saw all this shit going on. Like, don't get me wrong, Hillary was not like the best choice for president either. Honestly, I think last election Bernie Sanders would have been the best choice for president, but he's a self-proclaimed socialist. And for anybody in America that's a Republican, or especially Republicans, but even Democrats, they look at that word like, oh God, you're one step away from communism. You know what I mean? And we don't do communism in America, even though at the end of the day, I think the best type of political system we could set up would be a democratic socialist republic. You know what I mean? Something where, like, yeah, everybody matters, but we all get to vote on what goes through and everything like that. You know what I mean? And people don't want to hear that shit. And they don't understand that even though Bernie's a self-proclaimed socialist, there's also enough checks and balances in the country that he couldn't just get in there and do whatever he wants. Like, even Andrew Yang getting in there and trying to give $1,000 a month to everyone over 18 to like 65 or whatever the age was. You're not going to be able to just do that. Like, you're going to have to get in there and do a whole bunch of stuff to be able to do that. But he's got a lot of other good ideas too. Like, here's something I'd ask you about since you've been in the news forever. How do you feel like how do you feel about the drug epidemic that's going on, like opiates and everything like that, and Andrew Yang's idea to legalize all drugs?
That is big, and I am sure police departments will be busy. EMTs will be busy.
You think?
Hospitals will be busier.
Because the way that they're trying to make it seem, and they're not wrong, because there's places now that you can go, I don't know if it's in the U.S., I want to say it's in Amsterdam, but you go there and shoot up your dope. You go there, get your heroin, you buy it from them, they give you a clean needle and your specific dosage to get you high, and then you go on your way. They haven't had any overdoses in these places. Zero since they started the program. And that's one of the things that he's trying to go for, because the chances of you dying over fentanyl or something like that, you're in the newsroom, I know you know about fentanyl and how bad that is in the country right now. And the chances of them getting fentanyl in their heroin on the street right now are pretty high. It's not that crazy of a thing for someone that's getting heroin to get fentanyl. And
I wouldn't know.
I'm on the streets and I know this. Yeah, I pay attention to everything because, like I said, I think the lower population of the country matters the most because these are people that are hurting and they are the ones that do crime and they're the ones that do everything else that makes the rest of the country feel like they're not safe. You know what I mean? And it's not right. So, like, these are the people that need the attention.
Wait a minute. You said... Say what you just said one more time. I want to make sure I understood.
I pay attention to drug addicts and people that go to prison and the torture that goes on in prison and the struggles that goes on for drug addicts, because at the end of the day, these are the lowest end of our population. Here in the country, that we're only as strong as our weakest links, like a chain, and these would be our weakest links because of whatever the situation that they're in. So they need to be paid attention to. You know what I mean? And say...
You referenced their safety.
Yeah, their safety too. I mean, about the drugs things. If they can go into, when you buy a bottle of whiskey, you know what the alcohol content is, everything like that. Mm-hmm. So if drugs were legal, like heroin, Molly, whatever the hell people want to do, if it was all legal, that would all be coming just like liquor comes right now with a label on it. This is the percentage of heroin. This is whatever else these people are doing. So the chances of them overdosing accidentally on one of these bags from the government or a government like okayed facility would have a way less chance of people overdosing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I do.
It's just like people buying even weed off the black market or dabs. It's a big thing right now. It's oil, and they're finding out now that people are taking. Do you remember when K2 was a big thing in the country? The fake weed. No. Well, K2 is they call it spice or K2 or all these other spice.
Okay, I know about that name.
But it wasn't the actual green stuff that was the spice. It's the powder that they put on the green stuff. That's what got people intoxicated on it. So
I'm learning now. Okay.
I'm glad I could teach you something. So this is that white powder that they would apply to the tea leaves or whatever else people were smoking. They're now taking that powder and putting it on low quality oil. like marijuana oil, THC oil, and people are smoking that and thinking they're getting high from the oil because when they expect to get higher from the oil than they would for weed because it's pure THC. But when they have that shit in there, it's a whole nother level. You know what I mean? It's very,
now,
very
is
unhealthy.
it THC? Is it hemp?
What do you mean?
What is CBD? There are 3 different oils that you get from.
Well, you
the
can get the
actual
CBD,
plant.
but the CBD is not supposed to really fuck you up. It's supposed to relieve anxiety and depression, and from what I hear from the people that
CBD
take it,
counteracts the psychoactive effects of THC.
yeah. So it's not the one that gets you high. CBD is to keep you healthy as a person, and it's one of them things people don't know much about, but they're doing a lot of studies on it right now, and it's helping with anxiety and depression amazingly. It's anti-inflammatory, so it relieves headaches for people that get headaches
There's like
regularly.
a CBD craze right now.
Oh,
I
there's
was
so much.
actually headed to one of my colleagues' house, and I saw a CBD store here, and I'm like, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's one of those things like the government's finally starting to become more lenient on these drugs. So now we can understand what's really going on with them. Like they got a big study going on, I want to say at Berkeley or somewhere in Cali maybe, but they got a big study going on for MDMA, Molly, the party drugs. They have a study going on for that for vets with serious PTSD or people that got beat when they were a child or women that have been raped or anything like that, and they have these horrible PTSD experiences with crushing anxiety and they can't do anything about it, you know what I mean? But 1 or 2 doses of this MDMA has relieved the swelling on their brain and made them feel better for weeks and weeks on end. There was another story, it's on Netflix on the show Explained. It's about a cancer patient that they told him 2 out of the 8 people that have the cancer you have right now died. And he took that, and it was the only thing he could get out of the conversation was, what if I'm one of them 2 people that died? Da, 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 da. And they gave him psilocybin. That's magic mushrooms. That's a completely different thing. But it had the same effect on him. Relieved all that anxiety of death and depression and everything like that, and allowed him to live a semi-normal life until he got cured from cancer anyway. He didn't even end up dying. But it's just one of them stories like we don't understand what possible effects these things could have on our mind because the government has no possible sight in their head of anything positive coming from these things. You know what I mean?
You remind me a lot of my younger brother.
Really?
Yes, you all are incredibly smart, so informed. What are you gonna do with all of that knowledge?
This is it. This is my goal for life right here. I told you last time we spoke, I'm going to college for communications. I actually just went in yesterday and got all of my classes and everything filled out. I'm going to be very busy on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Monday and Wednesday I'll have a single class. But overall, this is it for me. This is what I want to do, is tell people like you story and get informed opinions, you know what I mean, things like that. And I also want to be able to, I think my biggest problem personally is very keen to violence, like especially with men, I know. So if I have an issue with a guy, my first thing is I want to go to fisticuffs, like I'm trying to rumble with you. You want to talk shit, I don't have time to sit here and try to change your mind about shit. But this has helped me grow a lot over the last couple months and be able to express myself and my opinions and have a disagreement with somebody without resorting to fuck you ain't nothing. You know what I mean? So it helps me grow as a person.
Because you can't do that in media.
No, that's not the way to do anything.
No, you can't do that. And actually, you have to. I think a part of the reason why I have been able to do my job and be in this size market is because you have to have, again, a high level of integrity.
Right.
I referenced that when we first started. And you have to be able to see many perspectives.
That's another thing this has done for me.
And I have a very analytical mind. But that allows me to absorb what both sides of an issue are saying.
Right.
And so I like that about me. Personally, maybe, that doesn't necessarily work in some relationships. But as far as my job and being able to do my job well, that you need the ability to be impartial.
Yeah.
I did a story about traffic stops when I was in Alexandria, Louisiana. And I was applying for jobs, and I went on an interview, and I spoke with the assistant news director, and he just kind of like Googled my name, and the story came up.
Right.
And he said, I worked in all these huge, huge markets, And he said, I've seen that story done maybe about 17 or 18 times, and he said, but you by far did it the best.
What was your take on the traffic stops?
It was because I was so impartial and I was fair.
Yeah.
And most people, when they do that story, they take a side. They take a side of the civilian, or they take a side of the police department.
That's a really hard thing to do with traffic stops, though, because they're on a case-by-case basis.
But I did it, and I did it so well that I was very proud of that story. The chief of police called me, and he said, you know what, I really appreciate what you did. He's like, you very easily could have taken a side, and you didn't.
No, that's one of those things that, like we were just discussing earlier, not all cops are bad. It's not a thing. Even if it's 1 in 100, that's terrifying. But it's not all cops. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is a thing. People are, you know what I mean? It's a power thing. They can't help it though. Some people just ain't made mentally to have that much power over other people. Especially if you had a bad experience with say a black dude when you were in high school or something like that, or someone stole your girlfriend, or you got beat up or anything like that. Those are things you're gonna carry through life with you. Like even if you don't. Not consciously acknowledge it, subconsciously you're always going to have some little issues with people even though you don't know them personally. I think it's anybody, you know what I mean? I think like you can try to be impartial because I try to be nice to everybody. Like you see my circle's random. I keep thinking
He called y'all random.
This is my people though. These are my people though. So like I don't judge anybody for anything. Like my best friend growing up was a heroin addict, but at the same time like you have to know who to distance yourself from and things like that. It's just something that happens in life, you know what I mean? Yeah, but for the police thing, no, they're not all bad. They're not all bad. And I try to say that regularly because a lot of people forget that. You know what I mean? Like I just had a discussion with him about the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything like that. And they made that way harder for themselves than they needed to in the beginning just by making it Black Lives Matter instead of taking the All Lives Matter from the door, because that's what I would have did. If I was started, I think I would have started as All Lives Matter from the door. That way people can't get all butthurt. Like, oh, I'm waiting, my lives matter too. Like, nobody said it didn't. You know what I mean? Like, people are ridiculous. People are oh, jeez, what do I want to ask next? I don't know. How you feel about what's going on overseas and shit? Like, do you have any information about that? Or you into that type of stuff at all? Like, the whole us bombing the shit out of Syria and all that type of craziness?
I don't have an opinion.
I think it's like 9 countries. And the worst part is like, Obama's my man. That is my fucking guy. He gave my kids permission to dream to be president. You know what I mean? Not permission, but like a actual reason to dream to be president as black children. And that will always be an accomplishment to me. But he did start bombing the fuck out of a lot of countries. Like he's the one that came into drones. Like he really got control of drones. Bush had them a little bit, but they became advanced with Obama. So he started bombing like 9 countries. And it's like Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. There's a bunch of other random ones. But the thing for me is we're not actually technically at war with any of these countries. We're just bombing them. And that's amazing to me.
Well, it's so much with it. I think most people don't have a full grasp on how decisions are made.
Yeah.
I think I do because
you have a much better grasp than me, I'm sure.
At the local level, I think I do, specifically because I had to go cover city council meetings, or I had to interview the mayor or the governor, you know? But beyond that scope, I can't imagine having to make a military decision. I didn't come from a military family. I know nothing about what they do day in, day out, especially being an officer and a high-ranking officer in the military too. Yeah. I'm not gonna touch that. No. I'm not the commander-in-chief. I'm so
well,
like that's the commander-in-chief way over there, and I'm way over here.
So let me ask you this: then, as a well-educated black woman in America who's already got her face all over the TV in a different bunch of different places, have you ever thought about running for any type of type thing?
You know, my grandmother was an elected official.
Was she?
Mm-hmm.
Where was
she was a state representative. Okay. She was on the quorum court. It's the governing body of a county. Okay. She was something else too. Justice of the Peace. She had so many offices. She had a stroke, so before she had her stroke, she was actually running for a Pulaski County judge. And so it's just something that I've seen growing up. I mean, she had a lot of friends who were also
answer my
elected
question
officials.
at all, though.
Well, I'm getting there. Just seeing her and her ability to get things done, and having somebody like that in my life, you know, you see this incredible woman who is a business owner and, you know, who is impacting her community. And I saw the good with the politics and I saw the bad with the politics.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is a way that I can serve my community in this capacity. It did cross my mind, but I think that we need more people doing what I am doing, more good people doing what I am doing.
Right. I'm with you. I'm with you. I think it's always good to have people out trying to get the truth. You know what I mean? So, all right. Well, being a reporter, I guess I should ask you this because I'm super curious on your opinion. What do you think about this whole Epstein thing? You have any opinion on any of that?
Mm-mm.
No, not at all. You think he killed himself?
Next question.
All right, so I'm gonna take it back because we never really finished the one conversation we were having about the Yang legalizing all drugs. So there was a lot of that though, and the biggest thing, like he was saying, is it is for safety reasons. It might not seem like it when you first think about it, because like you said, the first thing you think is people can get whatever drug they want, they're gonna go fucking wild. But at the same time, you can't go into the liquor store and buy 30 bottles of liquor, you know what I mean? They're gonna look at you funny or say something or something. And it would be
many times there's a limit on what you can buy.
Exactly.
Most people don't know that, but
you know, there is. And it would be even worse with those types of things, you know what I mean? Like I would hope if they actually did it, there would be some type of system, and if you're doing heroin, you would have to like swipe a card or something like that so the system knows like, all right, he bought heroin already, that he can't get any more, he's gonna overdose, you know what I mean? It becomes a health hazard at that point. But for other stuff like LSD or Molly or psilocybin mushrooms or anything like that, you're not going to overdose. You can't overdose on LSD. You might think you're going to go crazy on psilocybin mushrooms or think you're a bird and jump off a building, but you're not going to actually die from psilocybin mushrooms. You know what I mean? And that's the other thing is people have to get their own... It's your own body, and I think that's one of the true victimless crimes in the country is if someone wants to do something with their own body, that is their choice. You know what I mean? Like if guys can cut their own penises off and become a woman, I think you should be able to take some LSD and watch some fancy colors in front of your face for a little bit. You know what I mean? It's not that bad.
Well, when it comes to drugs, I don't do them. So
no, you don't have to do them,
there's
no.
that.
That's your personal choice, though.
Exactly, that is my personal choice. But so I can't relate to that. I'm also
but these
not
are people
a
you have to have in your community with you. You know what I mean? Like the people that do all these drugs, they still live around us. You know what I mean? Like
I mean, they still exist.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
but
the
I'm
same
not.
people. If you have somebody in your family become one of them, then all of a sudden it is one. And God forbid, like I have daughters. I got 3 daughters, so it's a terrifying thing for me to think that they might get addicted to drugs one day or anything like that. And that's when it comes down to, well, I'd much rather them buying a couple whatever they're gonna do from a store that's regulated than going to the black market and trusting any of those people.
I'd imagine so, but I would be more so interested in hearing from a health professional to see, okay, well, what kind of effects will people see in the long term?
This is the other thing about so-called health professionals, because the health professionals are the one that started the OxyContin epidemic. Those were health professionals. They didn't write them prescriptions to get people addicted to OxyContin.
Next question.
Okay. I know a lot about this. I study this stuff constantly because, like I said, I worry about all these people, man. Yeah, I very much am having a great time with you, and I just gotta say, I'm having a blast right now. It's always good to talk to like a well-informed, you know what I mean, anything, but especially a well-informed woman, because chicks don't pay attention to as much as they should. Some. You were 16.
3, 2,
Had a different life.
1.
All right, so we're back. We had to switch up. We filled up the camera card, so it's been a good podcast. I always think it's a good day when we get the whole way through the card. We got to switch over to the phone. This is interesting. And for everyone that stuck through the entire podcast, I really appreciate all the support. Definitely hit that subscribe button. We're 13 people away from 100, and then we are 10% to where we want to be. So we're going to be on our way. After her, we got a vet coming on. He went to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Guantanamo Bay. I was trying to have him on for Veterans Day.
That would have been right on time.
That's what I was trying to do, but his ride ended up having a kid that had to go to a parade or something. I always say babies first, so we'll get him on here soon. We will get him on here soon. I don't know. I really appreciate you coming on. I know I think I said that 1,010,000 times now, but it's definitely been fun talking to somebody that knows what they're talking about stuff. I don't know. If there was one thing you could do since you're in Harrisburg now for the city, I know you only been there for a couple weeks and such.
For the city.
What do you think's the biggest problem for the city of itself, just from first impressions?
It's troubling that I'm not sure which districts, but anytime you hear about a school district being under state control or they're not...
There's a lot of guns there.
I'm sorry?
So there's a lot of guns there in Harrisburg. Guns. Because people shooting each other and shit like that. And it's like high schoolers and shit that pop it off. Like they don't care. There's not too much fighting in the inner city anymore. Like they'll go straight to pistols.
That wasn't what I was referencing.
I
meant like
education.
The one of the school districts, and I don't want to quote anyone without being informed, but I know when I was here for my interview, at least it was big in that particular news cycle. But
so what do you mean when you say under state control?
Most school districts have school boards who kind of govern the schools within their
superintendents
districts.
and all that.
Right. One of the major school districts no longer has a school board. They're under state control. That means the state came in because the district as a whole, they weren't meeting certain benchmarks, and typically that comes from test scores.
Yeah.
And so if you're not meeting those test score benchmarks for an extended period of time, the state will come in. They'll step in and start evaluating the education within that district.
So who would be in charge of it if it's state ran then? Like if it's not ran by the county?
I don't know about Pennsylvania, but I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, and actually the school district where I graduated high school, Little Rock School District, they were recently taken over by the state. And so there are many community groups and just parents and teachers who want the district back under state control. And so just anytime I hear something like that, immediately it hits home for me because that's what's happening in my home. And so if there was anything that I can do in situations like that, I think that means that's a signal that people within the community, even if you don't have kids, that's a sign that the kids who attend those schools, they aren't getting enough.
Right.
And so I don't know what the disconnect is here or why it happened. I have no clue and I can't speak on that, but I do know that that's a signal for me that you may need to go up there and volunteer.
Right.
I'm a big advocate for education. I have 2 degrees, and so I think it's important. And I think it starts with the youngest, like the babies. And my mom bred to myself and my siblings, from the very, very beginning. My sister knew how to read before she ever got to first grade. My mom always said I was ready to read. By the time I got to first grade, I wanted to. Right. But that's what I want for children today. And so I have actually already started to research who I need to get in touch with, and I'm glad you asked me that. So now tomorrow I can actually get on it.
That's awesome.
So you sparked that, you renewed that, because you get so busy, doing things. Oh man, I forgot to send one of those emails today. Anywho, but you get caught up doing so many things, especially like in a new area. It's hard. But one of the things that I want to do is volunteer within just school districts that need it, schools specifically that need it.
So let me ask you this: do you think if we had cheaper pre-K programs, like cheaper ways to get kids into a type of school type of
When you say cheaper pre-K, I don't really know what that means.
Like anything, like, because right now daycare is super expensive for if you.
Now there's a difference between daycare and pre-K,
and that's what I mean. Like getting them ready for kindergarten, going into that's why I see pre-K because it's a learning environment.
In Little Rock, I remember going to pre-K,
right.
And my mom didn't have to pay for it. It was just through the school district.
I don't think that's like that here at all. I'm pretty sure you have to pay for it because I've never heard of any.
Rockefeller Elementary, which is where I went to elementary, they start early childhood education, and so like my little brother, he was going there like I think maybe from the time he was 2.
And I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's nothing like that in Harrisburg. No, there's nothing like that in Harrisburg, and that is what I'm saying because it would be helpful.
That's foreign to me.
I think that something like that would be extremely helpful in Harrisburg because a lot of the kids that aren't doing well in school have home problems is what it really comes down to. And I think if they were in an environment where they had to sit down and learn for a couple hours a day before they just get dropped in there in kindergarten for 8 full hours, if they could have somewhere there for like 2 to 4 hours, something shorter like that, I think that would be a lot more helpful for kids to get into a I want to learn type of mood because it's the biggest problem. I don't think kids want to learn in Harrisburg. Everything's so like, I gotta be hard because I live in a hard city and things like that. If people aren't as concerned about education because the city makes you feel like you're just not gonna be able to go anywhere. It's a very depressing type of area for kids to grow up in and shit, just for no other reason than like Harrisburg sucks. The city's in a bunch of debt and they barely plow the snow off the roads in the wintertime in the hoods, you know what I mean? So stuff like that makes people feel like they're worth less, and then it comes down to, well, I'm not going to be able to go to college anyway and all them types of things. Not because people have been sitting there really telling them, just because the world's been telling them as they've been growing up in the inner city and in these hoods and shit, and it makes it really hard to care about your education. You have that much going on at home. You know what I mean? It's a big problem for the younger kids, I think. Mm-hmm.
I can see that, but I will say, there is a will, there is a way. You just have to will it.
Absolutely, but if instead of having a grandma that was in the government and everything like that, if you grow up and your dad's in blood and your uncle's in blood and your older brother's in blood, it's probably what you're going to aspire to because you watch these people your entire life. You know what I mean? Instead of watching somebody try to better the community, you watching somebody just try to survive every day. That's a hard thing. You know what I mean? To understand from someone that, I'm not saying that you know what I mean, didn't have any problems or anything like that, but if you didn't have to deal with gang violence or drug abuse or anything like that, it's hard to wrap your head around. You know what I mean?
No, that wasn't my play.
That's still best.
But can I understand living in an impoverished area? Absolutely, 100%. Can I relate to struggle? Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's not what I was trying to say. I hope you know that's not what I was trying to say.
I'm not offended. But like I said, like no matter what the circumstance was, at least in my family, it was always, we want our children to be better than us. And that comes from the most successful person in my family to the least successful person in my family. That was always the message. That's always been the message.
That's how it should be.
Whenever I have kids, I want them to be way better than me. Way more successful than I am.
That's my only goal. That's my only goal.
And so I think that's the message that children need.
Absolutely. No, that's what I said. That's us as parents. Not everyone's like us as parents. You know what I mean? Some people feel as though your kids gotta go. It's a hard world. Your kid gotta grow up to be hard. Stuff like that. It's different for different people.
Now, whenever I have children, like I don't want them to be pushovers. Like stand up for yourself.
Absolutely.
Demand your respect. But
absolutely. That's my oldest daughter. She's a gangster, man. Her brother be picking on her. She'll smack him in the head with a truck. She's bad. She's bad.
But I think that's that positivity. I think kids need that balance.
Yeah, and the other thing is when kids get out of school in Harrisburg, instead of going home and doing their homework, like I said, they got a lot going on at home. So they don't want to be sitting at their house, and there's nothing for these kids to do. Like there is a Boys and Girls Club and other stuff like that, but it's not enough. You know what I mean? And there's no real effort by the city to build more of these types of places for the kids to go to and get into an environment that's drug-free and alcohol-free and violence-free is a big thing that I think these kids need growing up in their teenage years and shit, because those are your developmental years. And if you grow up developing into violence every day, that's how you're gonna live the rest of your adult life. You know what I mean? Unless you have a extreme change for some reason where you can afford to move out of that area or something like that happens. You know?
Well, I would challenge you to take a baby step, just a tiny one, for you and for somebody else. Even if you sign up to be a big brother at the Boys and Girls Club, that's doing something.
Absolutely.
You know, because we can talk about it, because that's what we do. We talk about it, but we also have to be about it.
I got 3 kids. I'm 100% about it. You know what I mean? I don't have to be a big brother. I got babies.
Like, but at the same, I think
there's nothing wrong
different
with that, though.
for
I think you're right. I think I would do a good job being a big brother and just talking to kids.
And that's different from males, especially black males having a positive black male role model.
It's a big difference. It's like I was just saying, if you get, even if it's your school that introduces you to the Boys and Girls Club because they realize that you have stuff going at home, it's hard to stay there unless you can find someone you can connect with. You know what I mean? If you're a big brother, someone you can connect with, and that is an entire different experience than if you feel like your big brother's just there to preach at you 24/7. And I get that. That's a good idea. I might have to take you up on that. You might have sparked me for the day too. So there you go. I might have to do that. But all right, I think we're gonna finish this up for the day.
Okay.
I
well,
really
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I might have to bring you on someday again, just because I really enjoyed talking to you.
Okay.
And I don't know, anything you want to tell the world while you're on the podcast, real quick? Are you good?
I'm gonna pull a Ellen. Be kind.
There you go. Be kind. You know what I mean?